has been a chaotic time these last few months, and we've been living in this chaotic fear. Are we going to lose our business? How do we get the PPEs that we need? And we've just been bombarded with news reports and weekly briefings and everything to the point that our heads are ready to explode. While we've been living in fear, there is one group of people that have actually been thriving. This is their dream environment, because anytime a hacker can create fear, can create chaos, they are going to profit. And they have done that. As we become desperate, they thrive. So they've been having a wonderful time. They saw this coming like everybody else did around January, February. And in February alone, there were over 300,000 malicious websites that were listed with ICANN and with Who's It. So, and this is where you claim your website domain. 300,000 of them. The FBI has identified, or actually Google has identified, over 500,000 phishing emails daily being sent out. And over 200,000 of those have got malicious attachments with them. It's crazy, because they know that if they can create panic, if they can create fear, that we won't think. We'll just click and we'll go with it. We've seen an uptick in ransomware lately. That's been happening, actually. That's how I spent my COVID time, was helping several doctors that were hit with ransomware. So it's very important that we have the right things in place. And we hear a lot about ransomware, but what we don't hear a lot about is the other viruses that can infect a computer or a network system. And they are actually, as far as I'm concerned, they do more damage, because a ransomware attack, it's bad. I'm not going to lie to you that can be a devastating attack. But they get into your system with a ransomware, they encrypt your system, they're there, then you take the steps necessary to investigate, because whenever you get hit with ransom, you should always investigate, especially now. We've seen more sophistication in the attacks, where not only are they attacking and encrypting the data, but they are actually exfiltrating the data now. So it's really important that you have that forensic investigation and do the response to a ransomware attack in a methodical manner. But to me, the infection that is worse is infections such as keyloggers that sit in your system. We've seen LockyBot. That is a keylogger that sits in the system, and we know that it's coming from emails. There's a lot of talk and conversation out there about contract tracing, and so the hackers have jumped on that bandwagon, and they're sending emails out from the World Health Organization saying that you've been around somebody who has been verified with COVID. Click here, download this so you know what to do. And what they're doing is they're allowing a keylogger, which is a type of virus that sits in your network, and it basically mimics everything and traces every time you hit a key on the keyboard. So you go to your bank, you put in your password, you're putting in your username, you put in your password. You're giving that information away to the hacker that's sitting in your system watching everything you do. So and this one, the LockyBot, can also happen on your Android phone as well. So it's really important that we watch when we're downloading, when we're getting these emails, to stop and think and take a step back and realize that these are phishing emails. And I'm putting together a social engineering talk because how they get your information is we give so much information. We have to in order to market. So we have it on our websites. We have it in our Facebook pages, and our Instagram, and our LinkedIn, how to contact me. Well, the hackers are going in and finding that information. So Tia talked about buying N95 masks, and that, I know these doctors are desperate to find gowns and to find N95 masks. So they're getting emails from people that they normally would not buy from. I know several doctors that, bless you, I know several doctors that have bought N95 masks from a source that they normally would not buy from. They got an email saying, buy here. They bought it, and their credit card was compromised. So these are ongoing phishing campaigns. And they are phishing campaigns because they have a little bit of knowledge about you, and they can use it. Well, they're emailing me. It's coming into my personal email box. They've got N95 masks. That must be legit. Order. And so they know we've got that fear. We know that the N95s and the gowns are so rare. We're desperate. And so we are a hacker's dream. I know that there's another type of keylogger that we're seeing is also called Hawkeye. And what it does is it goes into your subject line. And we're so worried about information that we'll click on anything that talks about COVID-19 or a riot happening in our neighborhood. We're going to click, and hackers know that. And again, they're getting our information because we're publicizing it. So we need to be very, very cautious about what we're reading and how we get our PPEs. I'm sure Tia would agree with that we want to make sure that we are getting them from a legitimate source. We've heard about municipalities even that ordered from organizations and from places, and they were counterfeit. So it's always best to order, even if they're on back order, to order from a reliable, known site. I would even at this point caution on ordering from some of the places such as online suppliers, where you have the online supplier is the main, you can order from that organization, but it's other people are actually doing the selling, because that other organization is not necessarily able to keep up until complaints start coming in. So just be very wise and try to order your supplies from reputable websites if you're going to order online, or pick up the phone and call your Shine or Patterson rep. Benco rep, don't want to leave anybody out there. And I know there are a lot of companies that, your lesser known companies that are wanting to get into the marketplace, and they do have the supplies, but just investigate them before you hand over information to them. So as we've transitioned from coming back from home, which is a good thing, back into the office, we're training on how to wear the PPE and how to question our patients on have they been anywhere. And it's amazing to me that patients, you'll ask them, have you traveled within the last 2 weeks? No, not at all, because I need to keep on that perio schedule. So I'm going to tell you no. Oh, by the way, I'll call you tomorrow when I get my results. Hello. We have to trust, but we also need to trust but verify. But as we're coming back from home, it's real important that we remind our patients or remind our employees about our security policies. I was laughing, Tia was talking about the documentation that she needs when she goes into an office. Every practice should have a security manual. Every practice should have a record of the training that they've done on their security manual. But as your team is coming back, remind them, do a short training on opening emails, making sure that we're not clicking on links, that you're not using the computers at work for your home computer or for your personal use anymore. What do you do to get rid of a keylogger? That I'll come back to that one. Consider changing all your passwords as you come in, just in case there is anything sitting there. And also, you've been working remotely, consider terminating that remote access. So making sure that we're not having everybody having access to the practice that needs it. To get rid of a keylogger would actually depend on exactly what the nature is, what the type of it is. It does require someone that has some technical skill, because you have to go into registries. So I would work with an IT vendor partner that can go in, because you need to run scans on it, but you also need to be able to go in and change registry and hotkeys and those kind of things. So it's not always easy to detect. A lot of times your antivirus, if you run a scan, we have the antivirus on our computers, but how often are we running scans of our systems with that antivirus? So a lot of times those antivirus will pick them up when we run a scan. And it's always good sometimes to download another antivirus and run the scan and then delete that antivirus, just because the antivirus is the first thing that gets attacked. I know I just had a ransomware attack, and that was the first thing second thing they did. The first thing they did was they took out the backups, the on-site and the off-site backups. But the second thing that they did was they disabled and removed their antivirus. So that is what most of these viruses and most of these Trojans and worms are trained to do, is to go out and look for an antivirus program that's sitting on the system and take it out or change it so it doesn't recognize it. So sometimes it's good to have your IT partner come in and run another type, and just to see if your systems and your network are clean. Let me see here. I hope that answered that question. Just checking the
Yeah, I think that was the biggest question so far, yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Every practice should have the documentation as you are retraining your team as they come back in, and you're putting in there, telling them, don't open, don't click on, don't follow links. And they should do this. We should all be very wary of this, even on our phones, even in our homes. Security does not only happen in an office. It should happen everywhere. In the environment that we live in today, we have to have that mindset, that security culture, so that even when we're at home, we think about, what are we going to click on? Do we really need to follow this link? So it's really important. But in the office, we want to make sure that we're documenting that we've done this training. Now, is this training going to replace your annual HIPAA training? No. These are quick little periodic trainings that you should be doing on a regular basis. But to create a culture of security, we can't just do it once a year and say we're done. It needs to be an ongoing process. So what I always advise my clients is to, once you have your security manual, your security documentation of the policies and procedures that you want in your practice, that you train your team at staff meetings. Take one of those policies and train on those policies throughout the year. And it's important to have them. Tia was talking about, a lot of times the doctor doesn't know what's happening. I was following a thread where there was 3 front desk workers, and somebody asked for their records. The front desk, the 3 people all had 3 different ideas of what the protocol was and what was allowed. One said, oh, we cannot release that record without a patient coming in here and signing this form. Well, that could get the doctor in trouble. And one said, oh, we don't really need to have the patient's permission. We can just email it, which is true, with some caveats. And the other one was, oh, we can just send the records, but we're only going to send this particular note. the patient was asking for their entire record. So there needs to be a process. There needs to be a protocol and that is gone through anytime there's a records request, and that's required under HIPAA. So often, you know, our minds right now are so much around OSHA and CDC and what everybody's saying. And I liked what Tia said, that the CDC is the advisory organization. It's OSHA and infection control that as dentists we have to answer to. So we have one other regulation that we have to answer to. But if we can stop looking at it as a regulation and look at it as really the best practices for securing not only our data at work, but our data at home, because when you look at the security rule of HIPAA, it really is just best security protocols that everybody should be using anywhere. And no matter what industry they're in, these protocols are used. We accept credit cards in our industry. We have to adhere to PCI. When you look at what the requirements are under PCI and you look at the requirements under the HIPAA security rule, they're identical. They're just best security practices. So it's always good to make sure that we're not looking at HIPAA as regulation, but that we look at it as a method and a manner to truly protect our practices and to protect our way of life, because these things are not going to go away. We're going to have them for a very, very long time. The more technology comes into our world, the more technology encompasses everything we do, we're always going to have attacks. Is it okay to allow? Okay. So yes, as long as you have the parameters there, as what the question is it okay to allow employees to access Google to look up, for example, medication, or does this leave the computer vulnerable? It does leave the computer vulnerable to a point. It comes down to training that employee, that team member, to make sure that she knows that when you tell her, go look up this drug, to go to specific sites that have the drug listed. Not that she's just surfing Google, oh, here's this place, and going out there. They're approved sites that you have listed, you vetted as the doctor. You know this is where I want to get my information from. I don't want to just get it from anywhere. So as long as she knows where those sites are, absolutely. We want to keep the business flow. We always want to remember what our mission is. We never want to vary from that. Our mission is always going to be to provide quality healthcare, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in a manner that protects our patient, because our patients trust us to protect their information. And we also want to do it in a manner that's going to protect the practice, because I can tell you, and you can ask my clients that have gone through ransomware attacks, and I had, I think the last time I was here, I shared about a doctor that had over $50,000 stolen because of a keylogger. So it's real important that we develop a security culture.
Debbie, can you comment? A lot of offices have Facebook pages, and I just recently have seen a very cutesy thing that says, when did you meet your spouse, and when was your first date, and what was your dog's name? And is that a phishing expedition to get information?
Those games that you're playing. So think about this. When you log on to a new site that is a site that you want to be on, so let's say your bank, they will ask you for some information. They will say, here's, in case you forget your password, here's some questions that we want to be able to ask you so that we know that it's really you. So what are some of those questions? In what year did you get married? Where did you meet your spouse? So what are those games on Facebook? What year did you get married? Where did you meet your spouse? You're giving this information away. And what's your dog's name? What year did you graduate from high school? List the 5 first people in your camera roll. Now you're spreading it, because now I know who your friends are. I challenge everyone to do a Google search of their name. It'll be amazing, the things that you find out about yourself. It's actually almost scary to find the things that you find out about yourself. Those games are not, I don't recommend them at all, because you're giving away information that you're using for yourself.
That's what I thought, and I just looking through it, I've seen several national speakers on there, and I thought, well, how cute, and then I thought, oh my God, I bet this is a phishing thing.
Yeah,
So
it's those
I already
games.
have all Angela's information, so I don't need to do it that way. Thank you for that charge card.
Well, I was thinking as you're talking, I actually just did this. I just hacked ourselves because I couldn't get into our auto. I had to print out a new auto card, and I didn't know my partner's high school mascot. And that's what I did. I went to Facebook. I'm like, okay, and I figured it out.
Right
and
there.
I mean, it's our own account, but I totally hacked it.
But if you can do it, and it's very, very easy. I mean, you can go to YouTube. We call it YouTube U. You can go to YouTube and just look up how to hack a Gmail account. It's really not hard. That's why we recommend that no matter what you have, you always use two-factor authentication whenever it is available. And again, it's about developing that culture of security. Everyone should enable two-factor authentication on your bank. On your Facebook page, you can have it now. On your, I use GoDaddy, you can do it on GoDaddy. Yes, it's a pain because they're going to send you a code, and invariably when I need the code, my phone is upstairs and I'm downstairs, or vice versa, and I have to run. I just say I'm getting my exercise. But it's for our protection, and it's about developing that mindset of having a culture of security. And as we're going back to work, reminding our team members that, because they've been at home, and hopefully they've been taking advantage of the program that y'all have done, because it's been an outstanding program, and I thank you again for allowing me to be on it several times. But it's really important that we remind them, okay, we're moving back now from vacation home mode into business mode. And so, using our computers to check your bank, to check your Facebook page is no longer allowed. You're going to have to use your phone. You're going to have to use it somewhere else. And I also want to encourage you as you move back, because I know that a lot of doctors, in order to cut funding and in order to shift bills and things like that, they did away with their IT partner. And to do that was, to me, was not good. But as you're coming back, do a check of your IT system, of your information system. Scan your computers and make sure that there is nothing sitting on them, and have your IT partner come in and scan them. Also make sure that your firewall is configured properly. And again, these are all technical things. This is why it's important to have an IT partner that fully understands what security is. So often when I go into offices, I find that they're using their 13-year-old cousin, or even the doctor is doing the IT. I had a doctor tell me there was 35 patches that were missing, critical patches that were missing. And he looked at me and he said, do you know how long it takes to do patching? Yes, I do. But I also know the ramifications of not doing the patching. And this is why you should have an IT guy and you stick to doing dentistry so that these things get done. The Equifax breach was because somebody didn't follow through on their job and patched the systems with known vulnerabilities. These hackers, they're reading those vulnerabilities on a daily basis. And that's what a patch is. Something has been determined that there's a vulnerability, that if somebody who was not authorized gets in, could exploit it and could cause financial and or reputational damage. So the manufacturer, usually Microsoft, or it could be any company, they will write a patch to close that vulnerability, but that vulnerability may have been found 6 months ago. The hackers have been taking advantage of it. So it's really important that we do the patching on a regular basis and have a protocol in place. That's part of your security manual in place for doing those patching and having those things. But as we move back into the office, make sure that we're closing down the remote access. I know a lot of doctors were using remote desktop because it's free. Nothing's free, and that usually means that we're the product when it's free. But also, remote desktop opens a port on the network that everybody knows is a vulnerability, and hackers are known to walk right through it and either deploy a malicious code or just go in and take malicious code. So these are the things that we want to, it takes a partner. You've got to make sure that you're staying on top of the things that are happening inside the information system. And I had a thought and it totally went out of my head that I was going to talk about. These are the things that are part of your security manual and your security plan. Down to how long we need to keep our HIPAA records. All these things are in that security rule. So I challenge doctors to what we have left of 20 to start developing a culture of security in their practices, because in the long run, it is going to protect their biggest investment, because the cone beam's expensive. The loss of data is going to be more expensive. And I can tell you that when you have a ransomware attack where you cannot access your patient information and you have no idea who's coming in, who owes you money, that is a very stressful situation. How do you stay safe when you want to provide patients with free Wi-Fi? There's a way to do it. The way you do it is that you have your IT company set up either a dual Wi-Fi or duplicate Wi-Fi. There's 2 separate Wi-Fis, because I took my middle child, oldest son, to the doctor one day, and he was in school he actually is a software engineer, but he was in school at the time, and he was on the public Wi-Fi, and he decided just to do a quick little look, and he was able to access his medical record from the public Wi-Fi. So we don't want that to happen. So in your practices, you want to make sure that you have a guest Wi-Fi that is off your network, has no access to your network, and only your devices that are required inside the practice should be on the network Wi-Fi. Everybody else, including employees, should be over on the guest network. How do you stay safe when you provide? Also, is there any safe way to remote access your patient record to be able? I recommend for the remote access, yes, there are safe ways. And again, it's you're going to have to pay for it. I use SplashTop for accessing into my clients and I do have one doctor's office that I do log into periodically. And I recommend SplashTop because I'm able to set the security parameters. I'm able to utilize 2-factor authentication. So in actuality, I use 4-factor authentication. I have my login to log into the SplashTop program. I have a 2-factor authentication so that they know it's me. I have another one when I'm logging into the actual practice, and another 2-factor once I get into the practice. So we actually have 4 layers of security there. SplashTop, I'm not a big fan of TeamViewer, but there is TeamViewer. SplashTop is, just Google SplashTop. It's on the, somebody said it. Thank you, Angela. It's not very expensive. I think it's like $60-$90 a year for X amount of users. Again, it's all about making sure it's those layers of security that are going to be so important, and keeping those layers of security not only in our technical world. We want to have those in our technical world, but we also want to think about our physical world as well. So that, and again, going back to the security rule looks at 3 areas. It looks at your administrative, which is your biggest area. So often I hear, oh, my IT company has got this. No IT company can make you HIPAA compliant because they have 12 requirements. As an office, you have 152 requirements. So there's no way that a IT company can make you HIPAA compliant, but they are an integral part of your security plan. And so you definitely need to have an IT partner, not a vendor, a partner, one that you can have conversations with, one that when you are adding technology, before you sign on the dotted line, you have a conversation with your IT company as to what that policy is or what that device is, so that we can look at what might be opening, what risk or how are we hurting the integrity of what we have so far. So it's having those conversations. If we were big hospitals or clinics, we would have a whole department that and a process that we would go through. And so we want to make sure that we have those in our businesses as well, because the key is we are in business. So we need to operate as a business. Even a mom and pop or a dental office has to operate as a business in order to protect themselves. And so, we have the PPP and the PPE and all these things coming at us. So those are all business decisions that we have to make, and so is security in our business. It is a business decision. It's not an IT decision. Was there another one? Hi, Ashton. How are you?
I'm good, but thank you, Deb, for making me terrified as I'm sitting here listening to you. Now, I didn't have a stomachache beforehand, but I do now. So
I don't want you to be terrified. I just want you to be proactive and plan. If we plan, one of the things that's caught us all off guard on this pandemic is there was no plan, because this was something we had never seen before. So we didn't know how to do, how to respond. But the things that we did know is, okay, it's a virus of some kind. So based on all past viruses, we're going to take this plan and go with what we knew. Right, wrong, plans are always changing, but we need to have a method to how we change. So I don't want you to be scared. I just want you to be proactive, because there's a way to secure your practice economically. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. So often I hear, oh, it costs so much money to do this, I just can't afford it. You really cannot afford not to, because the cost of compliance in your practice should be probably right around 2% of your gross for the year. Non-compliance can be upward of 60%. So, they will come in because you've got a lot of people that when you have a breach, they want their hands in your pocket. So the best thing to do is to be proactive and have a plan in place. My husband used to say, having a plan is a plan not to fail. Failing to have a plan is a plan to fail. And so it's always important to have that plan already in place.
I had to process that for just a second.
I know.
Yeah, me too.
So then I am a little curious. When, like you said, you've got so many people, like their kids are the ones doing the security setups, or whoever it might be, even if it's the doctor themselves. Are there certain things to be watching out for when a company says, yes, I can do this for you, that you just go, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but are there certain things to be looking for?
Absolutely. We want to trust our IT because they're going to be an IT partner, but we need to vet them first. Trust but verify. We need to vet them first. Seeing one thing, that would be a new IT company right there. My IT vendor declines to sign a BAA. That would be a new IT company because he's not providing you with quality service. A good IT partner is that BAA is going to be one of the first documents that they're going to give you, or or you can have them sign, because actually it's always the practice's responsibility to vet whoever has access to their information. So it's real important that you have a good IT partner. So one that refuses to sign a BAA we'd be looking for a new one. But any IT partner that you have, you should vet them to make sure how they're doing things. Ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. Ask them, when was your last risk analysis? Doctors are required to do one annually, and so are the BAAs. An IT company is a BAA, a business associate agreement. These are the people that have access to either create, transmit, or store your PHI. And one thing I want to add here is that so much focus is on the PHI in the practice, and I'm not minimizing it, because without our patient data, we have no practice. I understand that. But there are other applications in our networks and in our systems that are critical to our situation. I just had a doctor that she was hit with ransomware. We were able to get her patient data. We had her patient data. She still wound up paying money to get her financial data back because it was not included in that. So it's real important that we categorize our data, know what data is important to our business. Again, it's about our business. The practice management is critical, but there may be other applications that are also critical. And so it's important that we make sure that we are protecting everything and developing that culture of security there. Did that answer it?
Well, it did. There's enough that goes on, especially for those that are setting up a new practice, those that are just making sure that they have all of their T's crossed, their I's dotted. I always thought coming out of dental school, the most important thing I could find was a good attorney just to set up all of my legalities, and a good accountant to make sure that I wasn't throwing money away. But little did I realize how much more was associated with this, and an IT department associated with an individual office. I didn't realize until recently as to how critical it was, but my eyes were being opened more and more all the time because of this kind of stuff. So to have an actual price tag that goes with it, you said about 2% of the gross is the suggested range?
Yes, and I got with Linda Harvey, a lot of you know Linda Harvey, and we looked at what is necessary under compliance for OSHA as well as HIPAA. And if you look at, now not counting the gloves and the PPE, but if you look at the documentation that's required for OSHA, the documentation that's required for HIPAA, the annual HIPAA training, the annual HIPAA risk analysis from a third party, it should run about 1-2% of your gross max, and and that should include your IT. So hypothetically, you have a practice that is making $100,000 a month. So $1,000 a month towards your IT. Most IT companies should be around $700-800, depending on where you are. Some of them are higher. It also depends on how many devices are in your office. There's a lot of variables. I know on Facebook a lot of times I see questions saying, how much should I be paying for IT? Well, there's a lot of variables that are involved with that, because it depends on how many devices that are in your network, because every device in your network needs to be under the umbrella of that IT company. So obviously they're going to pay, just like we charge for, cavity per tooth per side, they pay per device. They charge by device. So it's important. There's not a blanket cost. Oh, every IT company is going to charge $700. Can't do that. But you want to find out from them what they're doing. When was their last risk analysis? Do they carry cyber insurance? That's important. Do they have cyber insurance? I just had an incident where an IT company was hit and they did not have cyber insurance. And so it was left up to the doctors to try to figure out what they needed to do. When was their last risk? Do they use passwords? Do they change their passwords? Do they have a policy of changing passwords when someone is terminated? Ask these questions. I do have a questionnaire that I send out to IT. I will be happy to share it again. I think I shared it. Just have them send me an email. I shared it last time I was on. It's a questionnaire on asking your IT company these questions, what they do, how they do it. Because you as the doctor and the owner of the business is responsible for making sure that whoever has access to create, transmit, or stores your information is doing it in a secure manner. So it's important that we always are looking at those. Again, it's about developing a security culture and making sure that we're knowing what those are.
Debbie, I'm going to ask you for that document one more time, because I can't find it on any of my stuff. I'd love to see it again if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, just email me. It's Debi, Debi, at dkcarr.com, and I'll be happy to send it out to whoever.
Beautiful. Would you have
No
any
worries.
objection by chance to that being posted up on our Facebook group as well?
I thought I gave it to somebody to do that, but I will send it to you.
That's what I'm
So
looking
this is-
for. If you can send that over to us, I'll make sure
Yeah.
to put up there as well.
Sure.
See, that's why I love you.
Oh, thanks. I love just, my passion is just making sure that it's heartbreaking when I see a doctor go through a ransomware. Is everything we do, is it going to stop a ransomware attack from happening? No. You cannot ever stop an attack from happening. But what you can do is have a plan in place to recover quickly. And under HIPAA security rule, you're required to have a disaster plan and you're required to have a recovery plan. Again, we need to stop looking at HIPAA's regulation. It's best business practices for forming a secure culture and secure environment.
And Debbie, I need your email address one more time.
Debi, Debi, at dkcarr.com. There you go.
Yeah, RR, just one R.
2, like you drive, add an R.
.com, correct?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
see,
and-
Angela already had it on there. And honestly,
Yeah.
how do I even try with you?
That's all right. That's all right. And I was looking forward on our Facebook too. I found some other things that you provided last time, so we'll be
Okay.
able to get that up for you.
Okay. I will send that to you. But, you know, it's not about being scared. It's a matter about being proactive and making sure that we're protected. We have enough fear. We don't need any more fear. We need to take a step back. We need to breathe, and we need to make logical steps on what we need to do and how we need to do things. And so that's all I'm saying. It's just, let's have a plan. A plan is a security management plan. It even has that title, and it enables us to make sure that we're creating a culture of security in our practices with our team, because we're constantly going to be training our team on our policies and procedures. Policy is a blanket statement, and the procedure is how we want it done. Just make sure that everybody's on the same page and doing what we want them to do, because, you know, when invariably this is going to happen, someone's going to click on something and they're going to say, well, they were checking their personal email. Well, nobody ever told me I couldn't do that. It's about having that policy and training on that policy and making sure that you have a record that they were trained on that policy that creates the culture. Just like we have rules for our kids at home, we have rules for our team at work. And it's just a matter of making sure that we have it in writing for them.
I smile and I laugh because, yes, I have rules for my kids at home. They don't listen at all. So, you know, if I tell my team members, you know, do this and this, I hope it's better than what my kids do, because they don't at all. Not even a little bit.
No, you will have to tell them 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40 times. But when we're constantly training on it, when they see it, what happens is when they see an email, oh, it's got a link. Let me think twice. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to think twice. And we want you to have a plan to recover quickly, making sure that you're able to bounce back, that you don't have, 2 months to close due to COVID is bad. 2 months closed due to ransomware is terrible. And so we want to be able to recover quickly. And that's the key, is to be able to do that.
Debbie, can you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned if a team member leaves, changing passwords. Can you talk a little bit about password management and things like that?
Yes. So password management. Anytime a team member, first of all, every team member should have a unique user and password to the information system. They should not everybody be using DOC. Everybody should have a unique user ID into the information system, not just the practice management, but into the information system. So that when that team member leaves, all you do is call your IT company and say, hey, so-and-so is leaving. I'm going to be escorting them out of the building at 9 o'clock on Tuesday. Terminate their ability into the information system. There's so many stories that I can tell you about where they have gone in, and one person still had access to the Facebook page and posted all this derogatory thing about the doctor, but I've also seen them go in and actually steal their records because they still had access to the information and steal information that they wanted. So it's real important that you terminate their physical capability to the practice immediately, as well as their technical. And the best way to do that is through having unique user ID for all team members. Then ask your IT company, make sure that they're following the same rules you're following. Do they have different passwords for your practice than they do for their other clients? And when I love when I call an IT company and they go, wait a minute, I have to pull up the Excel spreadsheet with that practice's passwords, because that way I know that they have different passwords for every client, and every device in that client's office has a different password. The more passwords we have, I know it's mind-boggling, but the more complex they are, the more security we have. And so it's keeping those passwords and keeping them to just ourselves. We don't hand our keys and our wallets and our phone off to everybody. We should be doing the same thing with our passwords. Did that answer you, Angela?
Yeah, like you said, there's just so many passwords. Like the thought of changing every single one of them is just exhausting, but important.
I know, but so that's why it's important to have. If you use unique user in the practice, what happens is that the IT company, there's a wonderful little tool that they have called Active Directory, and they can go in and give permissions to each individual person using that Active Directory. So you don't have to change everything. All you have to do is terminate that one employee. But so often I go into practices and everybody's using the same login to get into the information system, and then each individual person is logging into EagleSoft or Dentrix separately. Well, there's other applications that are used that are critical to the business operations. For example, QuickBooks on the office manager's or the doctor's computer. I certainly would not want any team member that's not authorized going in and looking at the QuickBooks. That's not they're not authorized to do that. But yet they're able to get into the doctor's computer because everybody's using DOC. So it's using that law, which it says each person will have a unique user into the information system to our benefit, and stop looking at it as regulatory.
There's a question in the chat about LastPass.
Password keeper. I'm old. I need them all. Yep, I'm getting old. I used to remember passwords and phone numbers. Now I have a password keeper that stays on my phone, my iPad, and my computer. And brain can only handle so much data. So I have a password keeper. You don't feel the same, do you, Ashton?
You just said it so nonchalantly. I'm old. I don't care. I just need someone else to do it for me.
You know, you get to a point.
Do you ever notice an actual mental shift in those that are trying to have this be a part of something that is a concern for them? As dentists, we're really weird mentally. I mean, we want to have the security, we want to have the protection, but we want it to be easy and we want it to be cheap and almost free.
Right.
You know,
yes.
so
about that.
There's a lot that goes on. Do you get resistance from people saying, I care, but I don't care?
Yep. Until they get hacked. And then could I have done something? Was there something I could have done? I can't believe this is happening to me. Was there something I could have done before? Yes. If you had had a risk analysis before, we would have told you that you didn't have versioning in your backup. We would have told you that everybody had access. We would have told you that there's people that have access into your company that shouldn't have access. We would have seen the open ports and said, okay, let's look at these and evaluate them. Do we really need all of them? And make sure that your IT company is only using what is absolutely necessary, not because you've changed to a new vendor or a new IT company, they left the old ones open. So it's having those things closed off and making sure that we're doing the right thing in layers. And yeah, so yes, I hit that pushback all the time. Or my IT company is telling me I'm 100% compliant and I don't need to do anything. I hear that one all the time. But it is our greatest assets and our worst nightmare is our team, because we can only do so many things to protect the team, but we still have that human element. And unfortunately, it only takes one click, one opening, and that would be it. It can download a malicious code into the system. So we want to, when that happens, because our team, they're not doing it maliciously, they're doing it because they didn't stop and think. So we want to create the culture that says stop and think before you do it. And when that doesn't work, we want to have the next step in place. Okay, now we have an issue. Now what do we do? How do we respond quickly? Because today's Tuesday and I want to see patients on Friday. So how do we do that? Having a plan in place. I can tell you, when you don't have a plan in place, it takes a long time to recover. Because when I get that call, I've been hit with ransomware, what do? And now I have to coordinate all the things that you should be doing, the forensic team, the insurance, and working with the IT. Now we've got to vet in a new IT, and we have to be able to change out things and get new things in, and backups and sandboxing, and a lot of things go into play. But when we have a plan already, we go bing, 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 and we get going. Because
like you said, sometimes for people, it takes a bad experience to open your eyes up and realize, man, I wish I would have.
Right.
If my own son diagnosed with leukemia years and years ago, if we wouldn't have had the health insurance at the time, we would have been bankrupt and gone without the ability to have any help at all. When it comes to something like this, if you ever were hit, then by all means, how grateful would you be if you did have that backing? If you didn't, then how hosed are you in that situation? There was the question of your personal favorite. You said all of them are great, the LastPass or any of them. Do you have a personal favorite that you like?
My family uses the Keeper. The reason why is because I can have all my passwords that I need for my things. My husband has all his passwords that he needs for his things, but if I need to share a password because he's in my circle, I can just send it off to him and share it within the encrypted application, so he can have it. And the same with my kids. So I have 3 kids, so all 5 of them are on our plan. All 5 of us are on one plan, and we're able, if I need to send something to them that has information, it's usually the AAA card. I can send it to them, and they get it, and it stays within the encryption.
We use something like that with LastPass too, like where I can just send oh, you can also have access to this password.
Right. And see, just there, that is a culture of security. So you have your password, and so we have the authorized users. And then when you decide to share, you are allowing and giving access to somebody else. It's that culture. That's what we want to establish, is that culture of security, that we think that way. We wouldn't just send it out to them. We want them to use it within an encrypted method, so that we're not just giving this information out. So we're already starting to see a culture of security coming. We just have to enhance it and keep working on it. Hey, Genevieve. Hey, you're muted.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
All right. Good to see you.
Good. I've been listening in, realizing I have some work to do on my password situation.
Oh, yes. Yes.
As probably many of us are.
Yes. There's always that. But, the longer password is always, I tell people to use lines from poems or your favorite song.
That's a good idea.
Use it, but change it up. Use, like for S's or, use some special characters in there and some numbers but things that we can remember. We'll remember the song and you can kind of sing it as you're typing in your password, but just kind of change it up a little bit.
That's a great idea, because that is the struggle, is how to remember the iterations of passwords that we have. So
exactly.
So we shouldn't use our social security number as our password, right?
No, or your home address, or your phone number, or your kids' names, your parents' names.
Your kids' names and their birthday.
Right.
All those games that you played on Facebook and you gave all that information, don't use any of that. We already know what year you got married, where you met, and what your spouse's mascot was for their high school.
I know that some places will even prompt you, if you try to use part of your last name or something like that in your password, it'll say no.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually studying, I need my head examined, but I'm actually studying for another certification. And one of the things in there is software development. And it's because the software developers now are becoming more aware of the fact that they need to be creating a culture of security as well. And so, yes, you're going to start seeing more of those things. But in the meantime, we have to be protective, and it's those layers of security that we've got to use.
Very true. Thank you for the to-do.
You're welcome. Well, thank you again for having me. You guys have a great day. I can't wait to hear Genevieve.
Good to see you, Debbie.